In this video, I try an ancient herbal remedy. It's a tea from a plant that is commonly known as green Mormon tea. Ephedra viridis, aka green ephedra, aka green Mormon tea, grows throughout the western United States in arid and semi-arid regions. Think deserty areas. By the way, I'm Sean. I'm an embryologist. I just find life on this planet endlessly fascinating, especially the microscopic world, hence my career choice. I like doing little adventures like this, going out, finding something interesting to look at on my microscope, and just trying to understand how life is just going on all around us. So welcome to the channel. I'm glad you're here. Okay, so the green Mormon tea plant got its name from the legend, I guess, that the early Mormon pioneers that came here to Utah would make a tea from it because this plant has the stimulant of ephedrine in it. And the legend or myth says that the Mormons would drink it as a caffeine alternative because ephedrine's a stimulant, and so they were looking for a stimulant, but they didn't want to drink caffeine. However, this legend doesn't really make sense. Mormonism started in the 1830s, and the first prophet of the church, Joseph Smith, established the Word of Wisdom, which was essentially a health code for its members to not consume things like tobacco, alcohol, and coffee or tea. It does not, however, say anything specifically about caffeine and not consuming caffeine. I think all of us who hear about Mormons, and I think Mormons themselves, are actually kind of confused about the whole caffeine thing. Apparently, it was more in the 1970s where church leaders started to say things like, hey, maybe you guys shouldn't drink as much soda. And so people started to interpret that as like, well, maybe it's the caffeine in soda that we're not supposed to drink. And that makes sense because we were told a long time ago to not drink coffee or tea. So it must be the caffeine. But I looked it up, and the church officially says that they do not have any stance against its members drinking caffeine, which brings us back to the legend of Mormons drinking it as a caffeine alternative. Just doesn't make sense. Also, it's very important to note that it was the Native Americans who likely taught the Mormons about this plant and drinking it as a tea. From what I understand, Native Americans would prepare it as a tea along with some other plants, and they would drink it for its medicinal effects. So they would drink it for things like backaches, or think, the common cold. Sudafed is pseudoephedrine. They would also drink it for STIs. Did it work? I don't know. I will note, however, I find it annoying that we all know this plant as green Mormon tea when Native Americans are the ones who initially learned about the medicinal effects of it and were drinking it for likely hundreds of years, if not longer, before teaching the Mormon pioneers about it. So I just find that stuff annoying. As I read more about the plant online, though, I found myself more confused about what is in this plant for it to give it a stimulant effect or even medicinal effects. Because from what I read, chemical analyses of the plant have shown that there is very little to no ephedrine in this plant and very little to no pseudoephedrine. There is a close relative to the plant that grows in Asia, and that one does have a very high concentration of ephedrine. So I'm not too sure why drinking this in a tea would be considered a stimulant or have any effects. Now, I'm not originally from here in Utah, but I've been out hiking a lot and camping, and there's really amazing outdoor stuff here. I had seen this plant before, and other people have told me like, oh, that's green Mormon tea plant. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And when I had the idea of doing a little adventure to go find this plant and take a look at it, I kind of Googled like, oh, is there a way to like isolate ephedrine from it? Could that be something interesting to do? And luckily ChatGPT was like, don't do that. Ephedrine's a controlled substance. You don't want to mess around with trying to isolate that, especially don't put that on the internet. So I'm not going to be playing around at all with, trying to detect ephedrine levels in there. Plus, I'm not some chemist. So I did go out on a drive. I had to go to a couple locations and hunt around for it a little bit, but I did eventually find it. It's so cool to see in nature, especially something that you've been reading about online. I don't know, it kind of felt like a little Where's Waldo in the desert moment. But what's cool about the plant is it doesn't grow any leaves. The stems of the plant are green because they carry out photosynthesis. No leaves means less surface area for them to lose water because, like I said, they grow in arid areas, deserty areas. Now, I wanted to cut a cross-section of one of these stems to take a look at on my microscope, Celine Dion. Normally, cross-sections of things that you want to look at, if it's tissue or plants, scientists use what's called a microtome. I personally have never used one. I'm also not a botanist, but these microtomes, which can make very, very thin slices because it needs to be super thin for you to be able to see it on the microscope so that light can shine through and then you can look through it from the other direction. These microtomes are like many thousands of dollars. I saw some handheld ones online, but all the reviews were like, don't buy this, it breaks after your second use. So I did what any normal person does in 2025. I went to ChatGPT and was like, how do I get a thin slice of green Mormon tea plant? And it recommended getting a potato, cutting it in half so you have a flat surface for it to rest on, and then making one incision in the top with a knife. Then I could jam one of these little stems into that slit and the potato would hold it steady for me. Next, I took a straight edge razor and tried to cut as thin of a slice of that stem as I could. Not gonna lie, it took quite a few attempts. But I was eventually able to get a thin enough slice, put it on the microscope, and in my opinion, this looks pretty cool. I didn't use any stains. This is just the natural color of the plant cells. Okay, now I'm gonna try a little bit of Mormon tea from the tea plant. I'm only gonna try a little sip of this because I don't know. I don't know. Something about drinking a plant from nature that I don't know if it's going to have some weird effect on me. Well, I'll let that steep a little bit. I got some hot water in there now. I guarantee there's somebody out there right now who actually understands herbal remedies from nature and how to prepare tea from this, and they are for sure rolling their eyes at me like, oh man, you're doing it the wrong way. I don't know. You're probably supposed to like dry it out, mash it up. I'm just thinking stems in there. Is that really gonna work? Oh man, I'm just picturing that headlines now. Wannabe YouTuber almost dies in hospital from drinking plant he didn't know he was allergic to. All right, let's give this stuff a taste. Oh yeah, there's a little earthy flavor to that. I do enjoy drinking tea and green tea in this. I mean, there's not a lot of flavor in here. I imagine you would need quite a few stems, but I wasn't trying to like harvest a bunch from this innocent plant that was minding its own business out in the desert. But yeah, it's definitely got an earthy taste to it. I'm just imagining one of those early pioneers that's like, ugh, none of my 5 wives are allowed to talk to me in the morning until I get my first sip of desert plant tea. Yeah, my guess is you would need a lot of this to have any kind of effect. So, hey, I don't know if Swig or one of the soda companies out here in Utah are looking for a new flavor. Green Mormon tea. I don't recommend it. Well, y'all, there you have it. Ephedra viridis, aka green ephedra, aka green Mormon tea. A cool looking plant that is adapted to grow in desert environments, and humans have learned to drink it. Stay curious, stay cultured, and I'll catch you on the next video.